My name is Byron, and at 34 years old, I never expected my own sister would slap me across the face in front of 300 wedding guests because I refused to give her my Manhattan penthouse as a wedding gift. The sound echoed through the ballroom as everyone gasped in shock. What Amanda never realized was that among those guests was federal judge Eleanor Winters, who witnessed everything. That slap changed our relationship forever and taught me the hardest lesson about family, boundaries, and standing up for yourself. If you are watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you are from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how this family betrayal led to an unexpected day in court. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My parents, Thomas and Catherine, worked hard to provide for Amanda and me. Dad was an insurance salesman, and Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school. We lived comfortably, but were never wealthy. From an early age, I displayed an entrepreneurial spirit. At 12, I was running a neighborhood lawn mowing service. By 16, I had saved enough to buy my first car, a used Honda Civic that I fixed up myself. College wasn't really my thing. After 2 years at Michigan State studying business, I dropped out because I had a vision for an investment app that I couldn't wait to develop. My parents were devastated. They had always emphasized education as the path to success. Amanda, 6 years younger than me, watched this all unfold as she was entering high school. The next 5 years were brutally difficult. I moved to a tiny studio apartment in Chicago, lived on ramen noodles, and worked 16-hour days coding my investment platform. I failed twice, burning through my savings and maxing out credit cards. There were nights I sat on my mattress on the floor, wondering if I should just give up and get a regular job. My third attempt finally gained traction. I created an algorithm that helped everyday people invest small amounts in diversified portfolios. The app took off, and by 28, I sold it to a major financial firm for $8 million. I stayed on as a consultant, invested wisely, and within 3 years, my net worth multiplied several times over. 3 years ago, at 31, I finally rewarded myself with my dream home, a stunning 3-bedroom penthouse in Manhattan overlooking Central Park. The place cost $4.2 million, and every time I walked through the door, I felt a sense of accomplishment that's hard to describe. That penthouse represented every failure, every sleepless night, every risk I had taken. Meanwhile, Amanda took a very different path. From childhood, she was the family princess. My parents doted on her, perhaps because she was the baby of the family, or maybe because she had a knack for wrapping people around her finger. Where I was self-sufficient, Amanda expected things to be handed to her. In high school, she wrecked 2 cars our parents bought her. In college at NYU, she called home weekly for extra money, despite having a generous allowance. She majored in communications, but never seemed serious about a career. After graduation, she bounced between marketing jobs, always quitting when the work became too demanding. Our parents continually bailed her out, paying her rent when she spent her salary on designer clothes and exotic vacations she posted all over Instagram. 2 years ago, Amanda met Jackson Harrington at a charity gala in New York. The Harringtons were a well-known family with old money and social connections. Jackson worked as a corporate lawyer at a prestigious firm. He seemed nice enough the few times I met him, if a bit reserved. Amanda was immediately enamored not just with him but with the lifestyle she thought he represented. What none of us knew initially was that the Harrington family fortune had dwindled significantly over the last generation. Jackson's parents, William and Eleanor Harrington, maintained social appearances, but were struggling financially after some bad investments. Jackson himself made a good salary, but nothing extraordinary by New York standards. When Amanda and Jackson got engaged after 10 months of dating, my sister immediately began planning a wedding that would rival royal ceremonies. She booked the Grand Plaza Hotel, ordered custom designer dresses for herself and 8 bridesmaids, and hired a celebrity wedding planner. The estimated cost quickly spiraled past $200,000. I remember the first time I noticed my parents looking worried about the wedding costs. We were having dinner at their apartment during one of my visits to New York. Amanda was showing us photos of flower arrangements that cost $5,000. Mom gently suggested, "Honey, maybe you could consider something a little less elaborate?" Amanda's face immediately fell. "This is my wedding day. I only get one. Don't you want me to have the best?" Dad quickly jumped in. "Of course we do, sweetheart. We'll figure it out." That was their pattern. They never wanted to disappoint Amanda or deal with her emotional outbursts. Later that night, Dad pulled me aside while Amanda and Mom were discussing bridesmaid dresses. "Byron, your sister's wedding is getting quite expensive," he said, his voice low. "Your mother and I have some savings, but not enough for all this. We were hoping maybe you could help out. You know, since you're doing so well." I agreed to contribute $25,000 toward the wedding. It was generous, but apparently not generous enough. Amanda barely thanked me, acting as if my contribution was the minimum expected. Among the wedding guests was Judge Eleanor Winters, a federal judge who was invited as a family friend of the Harringtons. I learned later that she had mentored Jackson during law school and remained close to his family despite their financial troubles. She was respected in legal circles for her sharp intellect and no-nonsense approach to justice. Little did I know how significant her presence would become. As the wedding date approached, I began noticing a change in how Amanda and my parents treated me. There were more comments about my fancy penthouse and how lucky I was. At family gatherings, Amanda would ask pointed questions about my apartment in front of others. "Byron, how many square feet is your place again? 4,000? And just for one person? That seems excessive, doesn't it?" she would say with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. I started feeling like an ATM rather than a brother. But despite this tension, I still loved my sister and wanted her to have a happy wedding day. I had no idea how dramatically things would fall apart, or that a simple boundary I set would lead to a courtroom confrontation that would change all our lives. The first clear sign of trouble came at Amanda and Jackson's engagement party, 6 months before the wedding. The event was held at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan, with about 50 close friends and family members in attendance. I arrived early to help set things up, genuinely happy for my sister despite our differences. As the evening progressed and champagne flowed freely, Amanda pulled me onto the restaurant's balcony for what she called a special sibling chat. The spring air was cool, and the city lights twinkled below us. "I can't believe I'm getting married," she said, leaning against the railing. "Jackson and I have been talking about our future. We want to stay in Manhattan, of course. Real estate is just so expensive these days." I nodded, not yet realizing where this was headed. "You know," she continued, swirling her champagne, "your place is really too big for just one person. Have you ever thought about that?" "It's the right size for me," I replied. "I work from home a lot, and I like having space." Amanda sighed dramatically. "Must be nice. Jackson and I will probably be crammed into some tiny one-bedroom. Unless..." She let the word hang in the air, looking at me expectantly. "Unless what?" I asked. "Unless my successful big brother wanted to help us out with housing," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You know, as a wedding present." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "I already gave you guys the honeymoon to Bali, remember? That's my wedding present." Her face hardened slightly before she forced another smile. "Of course, and we appreciate that. I was just thinking of something more substantial. For our future." The conversation ended there, but it was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Amanda began dropping more hints about my penthouse during family gatherings. "Byron, do you really use all 3 bedrooms in your place?" she asked during Sunday dinner at our parents' apartment. "Yes," I explained patiently. "One is my bedroom, one is my home office, and the third is a guest room that I also use as a gym." She responded. "Seems like wasted space." My mother joined in. "Amanda has a point, Byron. That's a lot of space for one person." I started to feel uncomfortable with these comments, but brushed them off as casual conversation. That changed about 4 months before the wedding, when Amanda and Jackson invited me to lunch at an expensive restaurant downtown. As soon as we were seated, I could sense they had rehearsed whatever they were about to say. "Byron," Jackson began awkwardly, "Amanda and I have been discussing our housing situation after the wedding." Amanda jumped in, more direct. "We've been looking at places, but everything we like is way out of our price range. Even with Jackson's salary, Manhattan real estate is impossible." I nodded sympathetically. "The market is tough right now. Maybe look in Brooklyn or Queens. Lots of great neighborhoods there." Amanda's face fell. "We can't live in Brooklyn. All our friends are in Manhattan. Plus, Jackson's firm is here, and so is my new job." After graduating, Amanda had finally landed a position at a PR firm, though I suspected her connection to the Harrington name helped secure the role. "What about your parents?" I asked Jackson. "Couldn't they help out?" Jackson shifted uncomfortably. "That's not really an option right now." It was then that Amanda dropped the bombshell. "We were thinking you could let us live in your penthouse." I nearly choked on my water. "What?" "Just temporarily," she added quickly. Maybe a year or two while we save up. You could stay in your Chicago place. You're there half the time for work anyway. I was speechless for a moment. Amanda, that's my home. I'm not looking to rent it out. Not renting, she corrected. Lending. To family. You wouldn't charge us, obviously. The expectation in her voice was stunning. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but that's not going to work for me. The Penthouse is my primary residence. I've built my life there. Amanda's expression turned cold. I see. Your things are more important than helping your only sister start her married life. Jackson looked uncomfortable. Amanda, maybe we should. No, she cut him off. I want to hear why Byron thinks his extra space is more important than family. That lunch ended tensely, with Amanda barely speaking to me as we parted. I drove home confused and hurt by her expectation that I should simply hand over my home. The next day, my parents called. Amanda told us about your lunch, my mother began, disappointment evident in her voice. I thought we raised you to care about family. I do care, I responded. But that doesn't mean I should give up my home. My father chimed in. No one's saying give it up forever. Just help them get started. You have your place in Chicago too. You could split your time. I was shocked that they were siding completely with Amanda. That's not a reasonable request. I already gave them $25,000 for the wedding and paid for their honeymoon to Bali. Material things, my mother dismissed. We're talking about helping your sister build her future. After that call, things escalated rapidly. Amanda began telling extended family members that I was hoarding space while she and Jackson struggled. My cousin Taylor called me, concerned about what she was hearing. Amanda's telling everyone you promised to help with their housing, then went back on your word, she informed me. Did that actually happen? I was furious. Absolutely not. I never promised them anything regarding housing. 2 weeks before the wedding, things came to a head. My parents invited me to dinner at their apartment, claiming they wanted to clear the air before the big day. When I arrived, Amanda and Jackson were there too. It was an ambush. We hadn't even finished our appetizers when my father cleared his throat. Byron, we wanted to talk as a family about your sister's future. Amanda jumped in. We found a perfect apartment, but we lost it because we couldn't afford the down payment. If you had helped us, we would have our dream home now. I'm sorry about that, I said sincerely. But I've already contributed significantly to your wedding and honeymoon. That's nothing to you, she snapped. Just pocket change. Her comment stung. She had no idea of the years of struggle and failure I had endured. Amanda, I said carefully, I worked incredibly hard for everything I have. Nothing was handed to me. Oh, here we go with the self-made man story again. She rolled her eyes. My mother interjected. What your sister is trying to say is that family helps family. Your penthouse is sitting empty half the time while you're in Chicago. It's not empty. It's my home, I emphasized. I'm there at least 3 weeks each month. Amanda suddenly changed tactics. What if we just stayed in it until we find a place? 3 months, tops. I hesitated, seeing a potential compromise. If you need a few months to find a place, you could stay in the guest room while I'm there. When I'm traveling, you'd have more space. Amanda's face fell. The guest room? We can't live in one room. We need the whole place. That's not reasonable, I said firmly. You're asking me to move out of my own home. Jackson had been quiet throughout, looking increasingly uncomfortable. When he finally spoke, his words surprised me. Perhaps we should reconsider our housing expectations, he suggested gently to Amanda. There are nice places within our budget a bit further from the city center. Amanda shot him a look that could freeze fire. That's not what we discussed. The evening devolved into a heated argument. Amanda accused me of being selfish. My parents insisted I wasn't being a good brother. I defended my boundaries while feeling increasingly attacked from all sides. This conversation is over, I finally said, standing up. I love you all, but I won't be bullied into giving up my home. As I left, my father called after me. Think about what family really means, Byron. I drove home that night with a heavy heart, wondering if I should still attend the wedding. Despite everything, Amanda was my only sister, and I wanted to support her on her important day. I decided I would go and try to keep the peace, hoping that after the wedding excitement, things would calm down and we could repair our relationship. What I didn't know was that Amanda had no intention of letting the matter drop, and that her wedding day would become a public showdown that would change our family forever. The morning of Amanda's wedding arrived with a series of hostile text messages that dinged on my phone while I was getting dressed in my tuxedo. Hope you're ready to explain to everyone why you're letting your sister struggle while you live in luxury. Jackson's family is asking why my successful brother isn't helping us with housing. What should I tell them? The truth about how selfish you are? Last chance to do the right thing. Wedding gift idea. Keys to your penthouse. Just saying. I read each message with a sinking feeling. Despite the obvious threats, I decided to attend. She was still my sister, and I hoped that the joy of her wedding day might soften her attitude. I texted back a simple, neutral response. Looking forward to celebrating your special day. See you soon. The Grand Plaza Hotel had been transformed into a fairy tale setting for the $200,000 wedding Amanda had insisted on having. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ballroom ceiling. Thousands of white roses and orchids adorned every surface. A 16-piece orchestra played softly as 300 guests in formal attire mingled before the ceremony. As I walked through the hotel lobby, I could feel eyes on me. My cousin Taylor approached immediately. Fair warning, she whispered. Amanda has been telling everyone you refused to help them with their housing situation. Some family members are pretty worked up about it. Great, I sighed. Thanks for the heads up. My Aunt Susan walked by and gave me a cold look. My Uncle Patrick deliberately turned away when he saw me. It was going to be a long day. I made my way to the bar and ordered a scotch to calm my nerves. As I waited, a distinguished woman in her 60s approached. She had silver hair cut in an elegant bob and carried herself with unmistakable authority. You must be Byron, she said, extending her hand. I'm Eleanor Winters. I've heard a lot about you from William and Barbara Harrington. I recognized the name immediately. Judge Winters. It's an honor to meet you. I hope what you heard was positive. She smiled. I make my own judgments about people. The Harringtons mentioned you built quite a successful investment platform. I'm impressed by self-made success stories. We chatted briefly about business and the evolving financial technology sector. Judge Winters was sharp and asked insightful questions about my work. Despite the tension surrounding the day, I enjoyed our conversation. It was refreshing to talk to someone who wasn't caught up in the family drama. I should find my seat, she said eventually. Perhaps we'll have a chance to continue our conversation at the reception. I hadn't expected to make a connection with someone of Judge Winters' caliber at my sister's wedding, especially given the circumstances. Little did I know how important this chance meeting would become. The ceremony itself was beautiful, I had to admit. Amanda looked stunning in her designer gown as she walked down the aisle on our father's arm. Jackson appeared genuinely happy, if a bit nervous. Despite everything, I felt a surge of affection for my sister as she recited her vows. Whatever our differences, I truly wanted her to be happy. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception hall for cocktails, while the wedding party took photos. I kept to myself mostly, avoiding confrontation with relatives who had clearly heard Amanda's side of the story. When dinner was announced, I was relieved to find I had been seated with distant friends of the Harringtons, rather than family members who might confront me. As the best man and maid of honor gave their speeches, I noticed Judge Winters seated at a table nearby. She caught my eye and nodded politely. When it came time for family toasts, my father spoke first, his voice emotional as he welcomed Jackson to the family. Then, to my surprise, the wedding planner approached me with a microphone. Apparently, I was expected to give a toast as well. I hadn't prepared anything, but I decided to take the high road. Standing, I raised my glass. Amanda, my little sister. From the days when you followed me around our backyard in Michigan to today, seeing you become this beautiful bride, I've always been proud to be your brother. Jackson, you're getting not just a wife, but a passionate, determined woman who knows what she wants in life. I wish you both all the happiness in the world as you build your future together. To Amanda and Jackson. The guests applauded, and I caught a flash of surprise on Amanda's face. Perhaps she had expected me to decline the toast or say something awkward. For a brief moment, I thought my olive branch might have made a difference. That hope was short-lived. During dinner, I overheard Amanda at a nearby table talking to her bridesmaids. Can you believe Byron? Living alone in a 4,000-square-foot penthouse while his family struggles. Then he gives this sweet toast like he's brother of the year. Her friend Stephanie responded, That's so selfish. If my brother had a place like that, he'd totally help me out. Amanda continued, Jackson and I had the perfect apartment picked out. We lost it because Byron wouldn't help with the down payment. Now we'll probably end up in some tiny place in Queens. I noticed Jackson shifting uncomfortably in his seat as Amanda spoke. He caught my eye briefly and looked away quickly, his expression a mix of embarrassment and apology. As the night progressed and the alcohol flowed freely, The tension seemed to build rather than dissipate. Several times I considered leaving early, but I didn't want to create more drama. The orchestra played, couples danced, and I did my best to enjoy the celebration despite the undercurrent of hostility. Around 10 o'clock, as the cake was being served, I decided to make one last attempt to speak privately with Amanda. I approached her as she stood with a group of friends, waiting until there was a break in conversation. "Amanda, could we talk for a minute? Just the two of us?" She looked at me coolly. "Of course, dear brother. Let's talk." We stepped away from the group, finding a relatively quiet corner of the ballroom. I spoke softly, hoping to keep our conversation private. "I want you to know that despite our disagreement, I'm happy for you today. You look beautiful, and the wedding is amazing." She crossed her arms. "If you're so happy for me, why are you making my married life harder than it needs to be?" I sighed. "Amanda, I've tried to be generous. The wedding contribution, the honeymoon. I want to help you, but giving you my home isn't reasonable." "Not giving," she corrected, her voice rising slightly. "Just letting us use it for a while. You have 2 homes, we have none." "That's not true," I countered. "You and Jackson have options. Maybe not the luxury apartment you want right away, but there are plenty of nice places within your budget." She scoffed. "You have no idea what our budget is." "You're right," I admitted. "But I do know that starting out somewhere modest isn't the end of the world. It's what most couples do." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "But most couples don't have millionaire brothers with extra property, do they?" I could see this conversation was going nowhere. What happened next would lead us down a path neither of us could have anticipated, culminating in a courtroom confrontation that would expose family secrets and change our relationship forever. The reception was in full swing. The dance floor was packed with guests celebrating. The band was playing upbeat music, and despite the tension with my sister, I was trying to enjoy myself. I was engaged in conversation with an older couple at my table when I noticed Amanda approaching. Her expression seemed calm, almost pleasant, which after our earlier interaction made me immediately suspicious. She stopped beside my chair, champagne flute in hand. "Byron, can we talk again? I think we got off on the wrong foot earlier." Not wanting to create a scene, I excused myself from the table and followed her to a slightly quieter area near the edge of the dance floor. Several tables of guests were within earshot, including, I realized, Judge Winters at her table about 15 feet away. "I've been thinking about what you said," Amanda began, her voice surprisingly measured, "about starting somewhere modest." "I'm glad," I responded cautiously. "There are lots of great neighborhoods with reasonable prices." Amanda nodded, taking a sip of champagne. "You know, Jackson and I did look at other options. Nothing really worked for us. It takes time to find the right place," I said. "You might need to compromise on location or size initially." "Compromise," she repeated the word slowly. "That's an interesting concept. I wonder if my brother knows anything about compromise." Her tone had shifted, and I felt the conversation turning. Nearby guests were beginning to glance our way. "Amanda," I said quietly, "this isn't the time or place." She cut me off, her voice suddenly much louder. "Actually, I think this is the perfect time and place. In front of all our friends and family." People at nearby tables were now openly watching us. Amanda turned slightly, ensuring she had an audience. "Did you all know that my brother lives alone in a $4 million penthouse with 3 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms? 4,000 square feet just for him." My face burned with embarrassment. "Amanda, please lower your voice." She ignored me. "Meanwhile, my new husband and I can't even afford a decent 1-bedroom apartment because the New York market is impossible." A murmur went through the onlookers. I noticed Judge Winters watching intently, her expression carefully neutral. "That's not entirely accurate," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You can afford a nice place, just not in the exact neighborhood you want." "Not the point." Amanda's voice rose higher. "The point is that you have way more than you need while your family struggles. What kind of brother does that make you?" More people were turning to watch now. The music seemed to fade into the background as our confrontation became the center of attention. "Amanda," I said firmly, "I've contributed generously to your wedding and honeymoon. I've offered to help in ways that make sense, but giving you my home isn't reasonable." "Giving?" She laughed bitterly. "We're not asking you to give it to us. Just let us live there while you use your other place. Is that so hard?" By now, at least 50 guests were watching our exchange. I could see my parents standing nearby, looking distressed, but making no move to intervene. "Yes, it is that hard," I replied, fighting to maintain my composure. That's my home. I've worked incredibly hard for it. It represents years of sacrifice and effort. Amanda's face twisted with anger. Oh, poor Byron, the self-made millionaire. You have no idea what sacrifice means. You got lucky with your app, while I struggled to find my path. Lucky? The word hit a nerve. I lived in a studio apartment with a mattress on the floor. I worked 16-hour days for years. I failed multiple times before I succeeded. There was nothing lucky about it. The room had grown eerily quiet. I could feel hundreds of eyes on us. Amanda stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper that was still audible to those nearby. This is your last chance, Byron. Either you help us get the home we deserve, or you're no longer part of my life. Simple as that. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. In that moment, something shifted inside me. Years of giving in to Amanda's demands, of watching my parents enable her entitlement, of being made to feel guilty for my success, something finally broke. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I won't be manipulated or threatened, not even at your wedding. I love you, Amanda, but this stops now. What happened next occurred so quickly, I barely had time to react. Amanda's face contorted with rage. She drew back her right hand and slapped me hard across the face. The sound cracked through the ballroom like a gunshot. 300 guests fell completely silent. The band stopped playing mid-song. Every eye in the room was fixed on us. The physical pain was nothing compared to the shock and humiliation. My cheek stung, but it was the public nature of the assault that truly hurt. My own sister had struck me in front of hundreds of people because I wouldn't give her what she wanted. In the front row of this public spectacle was Judge Eleanor Winters, whose expression had changed from neutral observation to clear disapproval. Our eyes met briefly across the room, and I saw something in her gaze that looked remarkably like respect for the boundary I had just maintained. Amanda stood there, breathing heavily, seemingly shocked by her own action. Jackson rushed forward from somewhere in the crowd, his face pale. "Amanda, what have you done?" he whispered, grabbing her arm. My parents finally moved toward us, but I held up my hand to stop them. Without a word, I turned and walked calmly through the parted crowd toward the exit. The silence was broken only by the sound of my footsteps on the marble floor. As I reached the ballroom doors, I heard the whispers begin behind me, the shocked murmurs spreading like wildfire through the guests. I didn't look back. I walked straight through the hotel lobby, handed my ticket to the valet, and waited silently for my car. As I drove home through the Manhattan night, my cheek still burning from the slap, I felt a strange sense of clarity washing over me. For years, I had allowed my sister and parents to make me feel guilty for my success, to expect increasingly unreasonable things from me. Tonight, that pattern had broken dramatically and publicly. What I didn't realize then was that this public confrontation would be just the beginning. The slap that echoed through the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom would echo again in a courtroom, and the consequences would reshape our family in ways none of us could have imagined. The drive back to my penthouse that night was surreal. Manhattan's lights blurred past my window as I replayed the incident over and over in my mind. My sister had actually slapped me in front of 300 wedding guests because I refused to give her my home. The absurdity of it was almost laughable, if it hadn't been so painful. When I got home, I went straight to my bathroom and examined my face in the mirror. A faint red mark was visible on my left cheek. It would fade by morning, but the emotional impact would last much longer. That night, I barely slept. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from concerned friends and relatives who had witnessed the incident. I ignored them all, needing time to process what had happened and what it meant for my relationship with my sister and parents. By morning, I had dozens of missed calls and messages. My cousin Taylor had texted, "That was insane. Are you okay? Everyone is talking about it." My college friend Michael, who had attended as my +1, wrote, "Dude, I've never seen anything like that. Call me if you need to talk." Notably absent were any messages from my parents or Amanda. I spent the next day alone, declining calls and trying to make sense of everything. On Monday morning, I forced myself back into my work routine, burying myself in investment analytics and client meetings. 3 days after the wedding, my father finally called. I let it go to voicemail. His message was not what I had hoped for. "Byron, we need to talk about what happened. Your mother is devastated. Amanda is on her honeymoon, but she's upset too. This family needs healing, and as the older brother, you should take the first step. I was stunned by the implication that I was somehow responsible for mending a situation where I had been publicly assaulted. It confirmed what I had begun to suspect. My family's perspective was fundamentally skewed. A week passed. Amanda and Jackson returned from their Bali honeymoon, a trip I had paid for completely. Rather than reaching out to apologize, Amanda began spreading her version of events to extended family and friends. My cousin Taylor called to warn me. "Amanda's telling everyone you promised her the penthouse as a wedding gift, then cruelly took it back at the last minute. She says you embarrassed her at the wedding by announcing your decision in front of everyone, and she reacted emotionally." "That's completely false," I replied, anger rising in my throat. "I never promised her anything of the sort." "I know," Taylor assured me. "Anyone who knows you knows that's not true. But some people are believing her." Over the next 2 weeks, I began hearing from other friends and acquaintances who had been approached with Amanda's fabricated story. Some family members had taken her side completely, sending me accusatory messages about my cruelty toward my sister. My mother called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that oscillated between guilt trips and pleas for reconciliation, all with the underlying assumption that I should be the one to apologize. My father sent a text, suggesting I be the bigger person and make peace with Amanda. The situation was damaging, not just my family relationships, but potentially my reputation. I worked in financial investment, where trust and integrity were everything. Having people believe I had broken promises or acted cruelly toward family could impact my professional standing. After 3 weeks of this escalating situation, I called my friend Sophia, who was a lawyer at a prominent New York firm. "I need legal advice," I told her. "Something happened at my sister's wedding that's spiraling out of control." Over coffee at a quiet cafe, I explained everything to Sophia. Amanda's unreasonable demands, the public slap, and the false narrative she was now spreading. Sophia listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, she looked up seriously. "Byron, what you're describing involves 2 potential legal issues. First, the slap constitutes assault, even between family members. Second, her false statements about you could be considered defamation, especially if they're damaging your reputation." "I never thought I'd be discussing legal action against my own sister," I said, the reality of the situation hitting me. "Family lawsuits are complicated and emotionally difficult," Sophia acknowledged. "Before going that route, have you tried a formal cease and desist letter? Sometimes that's enough to stop defamatory behavior." "I'll consider that," I replied, but I'm not sure Amanda would take it seriously. As I was weighing my options, something unexpected happened. My assistant informed me that Judge Eleanor Winters had reached out through a mutual connection, requesting a meeting. Curious and slightly nervous, I agreed to meet her for lunch the following day. Judge Winters was direct as soon as we were seated at an upscale restaurant near the courthouse where she presided. "I witnessed what happened at your sister's wedding," she began. "It was a clear case of assault, and from what I observed of your interaction, her reaction was completely disproportionate to the situation." I was surprised by her frankness. "Thank you for saying that. Many of my family members seem to have a different perspective. Family dynamics often cloud judgment," she replied. "But as someone who has spent 30 years on the bench, I recognize bullying and manipulation when I see it. Your sister's behavior was both." She continued, lowering her voice slightly. "I don't normally involve myself in private matters, but I felt compelled to reach out. If you decide to pursue legal action, I want you to know I would be willing to provide a witness statement about what I observed." Her offer stunned me. Having a federal judge willing to testify about the incident would lend significant credibility to my case. "I hope it doesn't come to that," I admitted. "I'd prefer to resolve this privately." "Of course," Judge Winters nodded, "but sometimes clear consequences are the only thing that breaks destructive patterns. In my experience, people who behave as your sister did rarely change without facing repercussions." Her words stayed with me. The next day, I sent Amanda a direct email. It was simple and straightforward. I asked her to stop spreading false information about me and to acknowledge that her behavior at the wedding was inappropriate. I suggested we meet with a family therapist to work through our issues. Her response came within hours. "You're the one who needs therapy if you think I did anything wrong. You humiliated me at my wedding by refusing to help your only sister. Everyone knows what kind of person you really are now." It was at that moment, reading her unrepentant words, that I made my decision. I called Sophia and asked her to begin preparing a lawsuit for assault and defamation. The family pattern had to stop, and perhaps legal action was the only language Amanda would understand. What I didn't anticipate was how quickly news of the impending lawsuit would spread, or how dramatically it would polarize everyone who knew us. The battle lines were being drawn for a confrontation that would expose family secrets and force everyone to take sides. And with Judge Winter's involvement, the case was about to gain a level of credibility that would make it impossible for anyone to dismiss. The day my attorney filed the lawsuit against Amanda for assault and defamation was one of the hardest of my life. Sophia had prepared a comprehensive complaint outlining both the physical assault at the wedding and the subsequent campaign of false statements Amanda had been making about me. Within hours of the filing, my phone exploded with calls and texts. My parents were first, of course, my mother in tears and my father furious. "How could you do this to your own sister?" he demanded. "Lawsuits are for enemies, not family." "I tried to resolve this privately," I reminded him. Amanda refused to stop spreading lies about me. "They're not lies," he insisted. "You did promise to help them with housing." It was shocking to realize my parents had fully embraced Amanda's fabricated version of events. They had always favored her, but I never thought they would support outright deception. News of the lawsuit spread quickly through our social circles. Some family members stopped speaking to me entirely. Others reached out privately to express support but were unwilling to take sides publicly. The divide was painful but clarifying. It showed me who truly valued truth and fairness, and who would support manipulative behavior if it came from the right person. What neither Amanda nor my parents anticipated was the media attention the case would attract. Judge Eleanor Winter's involvement as a witness was noteworthy, given her respected position. When court records became public and reporters discovered a federal judge was willing to testify, several legal blogs picked up the story. Soon, it appeared in the New York Times Metro section, "Federal judge to testify in family wedding assault case." Amanda hired an aggressive attorney who immediately tried to paint her as an emotional bride overwhelmed by wedding stress. They filed a motion to dismiss, claiming the slap was a minor family disagreement blown out of proportion, and that my claims of defamation were an attempt to silence Amanda's opinions about family obligations. Judge Winter's official statement, submitted as part of our response, changed everything. Her description of the events was clinical and devastating. I witnessed Miss Amanda Harrington deliberately escalate a conversation with her brother to create a public confrontation. When Mr. Byron calmly refused her demands despite significant public pressure, Miss Harrington physically struck him with considerable force. This was not a reflexive or emotional reaction, but appeared to be a calculated attempt to humiliate him publicly after her verbal intimidation failed. The judge, hearing our case, denied the motion to dismiss, and we moved into the discovery phase. This is where the case took an unexpected turn that none of us saw coming. During discovery, Amanda was required to turn over text messages and emails related to her housing discussions with me. What emerged was shocking. In text to her friends before the wedding, Amanda had outlined a deliberate plan. "Byron won't give up the penthouse easily, so I'll have to pressure him. The wedding will be perfect. If he refuses in front of everyone, he'll look like the worst brother ever. He cares too much about his image to let that happen." Another text to her friend Stephanie read, "If public pressure doesn't work, I'll just tell everyone he promised it to us. Who will they believe? The emotional bride or the cold businessman?" These messages revealed a level of premeditation that stunned even me. My sister had planned to manipulate and coerce me all along. Even more revealing were financial documents that came to light during discovery. Contrary to their claims about struggling to afford housing, Amanda and Jackson had significant savings. They could easily afford a lovely apartment in several nice neighborhoods. What they couldn't afford was the ultra-luxury building they had set their hearts on in the most expensive part of Manhattan. The struggle they had described was entirely about their unwillingness to live within realistic means. As these revelations became part of the court record, more wedding guests began reaching out to me. 3 people had actually recorded the confrontation on their phones, capturing both the verbal exchange and the slap. One of these videos clearly showed Amanda escalating the situation deliberately, contradicting her claim that she had reacted emotionally to something I said. The most surprising ally emerged about 2 months into the legal proceedings. Jackson, Amanda's husband, contacted me privately through his own attorney, requesting a confidential meeting. Curious and cautious, I agreed, bringing Sophia with me. The meeting took place at a neutral law office. Jackson looked tired and stressed as he entered the conference room. "I want to be clear," he began. "I love Amanda, but what she did was wrong, and what she's doing now is worse." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were text messages between him and Amanda from before the wedding. In them, Jackson repeatedly expressed discomfort with Amanda's plan to pressure me about the penthouse. "I don't think it's right to put your brother on the spot like this," one message read. "We can afford a nice place in Brooklyn or the Upper East Side." Amanda's response was telling. "Trust me, Byron can be manipulated. He just needs the right pressure. No one wants to look bad in front of family and friends." Jackson looked at me with genuine remorse. I should have stopped this. I tried to talk her out of it, but eventually I just stopped arguing. That was my failing. "Why are you showing me these now?" I asked. "Because the lies have to stop," he replied. "Amanda is telling her attorney things that never happened, creating conversations that never took place. I can't be part of that. I was raised to value honesty." Jackson's testimony and evidence became crucial to the case. Though it created a serious rift in his new marriage, he stood by his decision to tell the truth. The court proceedings moved forward with increasing momentum. Amanda's attorney, recognizing the strengthening case against her, began suggesting settlement talks. My parents, who had initially been furious about the lawsuit, now called with a different tone, urging me to settle for the sake of the family. But something had fundamentally changed in me. For years, I had compromised, given in, and allowed Amanda's manipulative behavior to continue without consequences. Judge Winter's words echoed in my mind. Sometimes clear consequences are the only thing that breaks destructive patterns. The day I took the stand was surreal. Looking at Amanda across the courtroom, I felt sadness rather than anger. How had we reached this point? As I testified about our relationship history, the wedding confrontation, and the subsequent defamation, I spoke with calm honesty. I wasn't trying to punish Amanda. I was simply standing firm in the truth. "Mr. Byron," my attorney asked toward the end of my testimony, "what do you hope to achieve with this lawsuit?" I thought carefully before answering. "I want the truth established. I want the false statements about me to stop. And I hope that by holding firm to these boundaries, my relationship with my sister might eventually become healthier. Not by giving in to manipulation, but by establishing mutual respect." The judge's ruling came down firmly in my favor. The court found that Amanda had committed assault and had knowingly made false defamatory statements about me. She was ordered to make a public retraction of her claims, pay my legal fees, and pay damages of $75,000. In her ruling, the judge included a powerful statement about family relationships. Family bonds do not negate personal boundaries or excuse manipulative behavior. In fact, healthy family relationships require greater respect for boundaries, not less. The court finds the defendant's attempt to use family obligation as justification for both physical assault and reputation damage, particularly troubling. The lawsuit was over, but its impact on our family was just beginning. Amanda was humiliated by the public nature of her loss and the exposure of her manipulative behavior. My parents were forced to confront their role in enabling her, and I was left to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I could have with them moving forward. As for the damages awarded to me, I decided to donate the entire amount to a non-profit organization that supported victims of family abuse. It was never about the money. It was about standing up for myself and breaking a destructive family pattern that had gone on far too long. The days following the court's decision were strangely quiet. After months of legal battles and family chaos, the silence felt both peaceful and unsettling. Amanda had been ordered to make a public retraction of her false claims, which she did through a terse written statement that her attorney distributed to anyone who had heard her original accusations. I acknowledge that my brother Byron never promised me his penthouse apartment as a wedding gift. Any statements I made to that effect were untrue. I also acknowledge that my behavior at my wedding reception was inappropriate. The words were technically compliant with the court order, but devoid of genuine remorse. I hadn't expected a heartfelt apology, but seeing the statement still stung. It was clear that Amanda was following legal requirements rather than experiencing a change of heart. My parents were in shock. The public nature of the lawsuit and verdict had forced them to confront their role in enabling Amanda's behavior. They had always stepped in to smooth things over when she created problems, shielding her from consequences. Now, they couldn't protect her from the results of her actions, and it shattered their perception of our family dynamics. For the first month after the verdict, I kept my distance from all of them, focusing on healing and reflecting on what I had learned. The experience had been painful but clarifying. I realized I had spent years feeling guilty for my success while allowing my family to take advantage of my generosity. The The lawsuit had forced me to articulate and defend my boundaries in ways I had previously avoided. Judge Winters reached out to me after the case concluded, inviting me to lunch. Over a meal at a quiet restaurant, she offered perspective that proved invaluable. Family patterns are among the hardest to break, she told me. What you did took remarkable courage. Many people endure manipulation and even abuse from family members for their entire lives, rather than risk the relationship. I still struggle with guilt sometimes, I admitted, wondering if I should have just given in to keep the peace. She shook her head firmly. Giving in to unreasonable demands doesn't create genuine peace. It creates a temporary absence of conflict at the cost of your self-respect. True peace comes from honest relationships with healthy boundaries. As weeks turned into months, I began rebuilding my life with a newfound sense of clarity about relationships. I reconnected with friends who had supported me through the ordeal and distanced myself from those who had encouraged me to compromise my boundaries to appease Amanda. 6 months after the verdict, my parents reached out, asking to meet. We gathered at a neutral location, a restaurant halfway between their apartment and mine. They looked older, somehow, the stress of recent events etched into their faces. We've been doing a lot of thinking, my father began awkwardly, and some counseling, he added, surprising me. My father had always dismissed therapy as unnecessary nonsense. We didn't handle things well, my mother admitted, her eyes welling with tears. We should have stepped in when Amanda was making those demands. We should have supported you when you set reasonable boundaries. Why didn't you? I asked, the question I had wondered for months. My father sighed heavily. It was easier to pressure you to give in than to deal with Amanda's reaction if she didn't get her way. You were always the reasonable one. We took advantage of that. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest. We talked for hours that day, having the kind of direct conversation that had always been avoided in our family. I explained how their pattern of enabling Amanda had affected both of us, giving her an unrealistic expectation of entitlement and making me feel undervalued despite my achievements. Our relationship began to heal, slowly and with occasional setbacks. My parents started setting their own boundaries with Amanda, which created a new kind of tension, but one that was ultimately healthier than the old patterns. As for Amanda, her path was more complicated. The public nature of the lawsuit and her behavior had created significant embarrassment for her in social circles. Some friends distanced themselves. Others questioned her version of events in other situations, now aware of her tendency to manipulate facts. Her marriage to Jackson struggled in the aftermath. He had chosen truth over loyalty to her lies, creating a rift between them. They entered marriage counseling, where Amanda was finally forced to confront some hard truths about her behavior patterns. About a year after the wedding incident, Amanda contacted me directly for the first time since the lawsuit. Her email was brief but significant. I've been doing intensive therapy. My counselor thinks I may have narcissistic tendencies that I need to work on. I'm not ready to talk directly yet, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand what happened and why. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start, an acknowledgement that her behavior needed examination. I responded with brief encouragement, making no demands but leaving the door open for more communication when she was ready. My friendship with Judge Winters developed in unexpected ways. What began as a legal witness relationship evolved into a mentorship. Her insights on professional ethics and personal boundaries proved invaluable as I navigated both my career and my complicated family dynamics. She introduced me to her circle of colleagues, expanding my professional network in meaningful ways. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I won't be manipulated or threatened, not even at your wedding. I love you, Amanda, but this stops now. The most profound change was internal. I no longer felt guilty about my success or obligated to fulfill unreasonable expectations from family. I remained generous, but with clear boundaries. When I did help others, it came from genuine choice rather than manipulation or obligation. The lawsuit had cost me nearly $100,000 in legal fees, despite being awarded costs. The emotional toll had been even higher. Yet I considered it an investment in my self-respect and in healthier relationships going forward. Some family members never forgave me for taking legal action against Amanda. Others admitted privately that it had been necessary to break the destructive patterns that had dominated our family dynamics. 15 months after the wedding slap that changed everything, I founded a small nonprofit organization focused on helping people navigate family financial conflicts. We provided resources, counseling referrals, and in some cases, legal advice to individuals struggling with family members who made inappropriate financial demands. The work was healing, turning my painful experience into something that could help others. The lesson I learned through all of this was profound. Sometimes the greatest act of love, both for yourself and for others, is setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. Enabling harmful behavior isn't kindness, it's avoidance. True compassion means being willing to face difficult conversations and even conflict when necessary. My relationship with Amanda will never be what it once was, but there's hope for something new and healthier to develop as she continues her therapeutic work. My parents and I have established a more honest relationship with clearer expectations and greater mutual respect. As for the penthouse that started it all, it remains my home, a symbol not of selfishness but of hard work, perseverance through failure, and the importance of standing up for yourself even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. I wonder if any of you have faced similar situations with family members who felt entitled to your success. How did you handle it? I've learned that standing firm on reasonable boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more real-life experiences, and share your own stories in the comments below. Your support means everything as we build this community of people committed to authentic relationships and personal growth. Thank you for listening, and remember, you can love your family deeply while still maintaining healthy boundaries.